Hi there, everyone. I'm just about to, I'm just finishing up for the day now, but wanted to talk to you about fire doors because they're a pain in the backside, and I've had some really horrific experiences with fire doors. So, this HMO just had a light decor and a very basic refurb, but I often get stressed over some things, and one of the things I do get really stressed over is fire doors. So here's a fire door. HMO properties have to have fire doors on most of the rooms. There are exceptions. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but generally, you need to know that these doors are required and of the type that will close, as you've just seen there. Couple of things that I've seen on my travels where HMOs or HMO refurbs have been non-compliant or had problems, and I've been guilty of myself when I was starting out. Well, the first thing is that the door actually needs to close. So you see that you don't want it slamming and really unpleasant and thumping the frame because you'll damage it. So that's ideally how it should close. You'll notice it needs to have a thumb turn lock, so you need to make sure that that's available on the door. You can't have keys on the inside really. You'll notice these things. These are intumescent strips. These expand with heat. So if there is a fire and there's heat, these will expand and provide a better seal on the frame of the door. So these all need to be in place. Quite often these are missed. Sometimes you'll find them actually on the door here, but on this property they're on the frame. And there you can see all the way around the frame. You've got the intumescent strips. They come all the way up to the hinges, not over them, just up to the hinges. One thing that I've noticed missing loads of times in properties when they've had the fire doors fitted is the threshold at the bottom. It's this piece of wood which has to be in place. You can't have a metal strip or a bar. This needs to be a what's called a threshold, which is needs to be hardwood. Not too much of a gap underneath either. I believe it's around about 1 centimetre. I don't have the exact requirements, and they probably vary by local authority anyway. You'll notice that the door closer is on the door. With these, quite often I see that these mechanisms are placed in the wrong place, so it doesn't have sufficient angle to close the door. So basically, as a rule of thumb, you need it just off to the right. So as you see in my hand there, just off to the right, you'll find where this pivot point is against the hinge. If it's on another door swinging the other way, it would be the opposite, okay? So just be aware of that. I see these things put on all sorts of shapes. Absolutely terrible, to be honest, but yeah, that's really how it should be. Tenants will pop these off. They can't do that. You need to put that in the tenancy agreement that they must never tamper with the fire doors. Other things that I see when I'm out and about, you'll notice that you'll have hooks and things hanging off the top of the door. That's a definite no, can't happen, and will damage the door, compromise it. And also you'll find every HMO has its own rockery. This one's no exception. I've just noticed that there's one over there. Someone's put a rock on the door, drives me mad. That puts pressure on these hinges for closing. So eventually they'll just wear out really quickly because the rock is trying to close and pushing against the rock. So we definitely don't want to be seeing that. My advice here: put a policy in place. If you are renting to tenants, put a policy in place for fire doors. Make sure that the tenants know what their obligations are in terms of looking after these fires, because ultimately these will save someone's life. Have the potential to save someone's life in the event of a fire, so they shouldn't be messed about with. And more importantly than anything, if these do save someone's life, then that's a proper box ticked in my view. They can really be an absolute lifesaver, quite literally. In addition to that, you've also, as an HMO owner, you'll probably, in some instances, have the property inspector, particularly if it's in a licensed area. If it's licensed, they will be checking these doors. Don't skimp, don't try and cheat, don't try and get around it, because you can't. These fire doors need to work, and they will be checked whenever the HMO officer visits, and they'll be expected to close just like that. If they don't close just like that, it's a fail, and ultimately, you don't want to be upsetting the HMO officer by not having compliant doors. So make sure when you're going around and checking on your inspections, you're checking these fire doors as you would when you check your alarm panel, do your fire alarm tests, test your smoke alarms, test these doors as well. And don't leave it, because if you leave it, the cost might up. I paid several £1,000s for the doors in this property. I don't want them getting damaged, and I certainly want to keep them maintained. So hopefully that's of help to people. I'm sure I've missed out loads because I don't proclaim to be a fire safety expert. I'm really not. But I often notice that fire doors are just like the last thing somebody thinks about when they're refurbishing a property, but they should really be the first thing that we think about when we're refurbishing a property, and they need to be compliant. So I hope that's of help. If you want to know any more about this sort of stuff, just make sure you're in the Facebook group. You can also get information online, but drop me a message or come on one of my courses and we can talk about this and other things as well. Thanks, guys.